You see the title of my presentation is a question. You have performance, creatività, resilienza, and I ask the question, is there a role for the creative economists in this resilience? And so the next 20 minutes from my side is more asking questions than giving answers, because it's a huge topic, creative economies, and we just have 20 minutes. I will speak about what do we understand by creative economies, a short preliminary remark. And then I have 3 topics, all of them related to resilience. I ask myself, is there a definition of creative economies, a resilient one? How can we analyze the creative economies if we want to do it in a resilient way? And is there a role in the ecosystem of Switzerland for the creative economies? Is there a resilient role? Just where do I come from? I come from Zurich University of the Arts. Here you see the web address of our research center. Maybe if you want to have more information about what I say, if you want to see all the reports about creative economies in Switzerland, they were all published by our center, go to this website. And maybe a second interesting information, because in the introduction of this beautiful event, several times mentioned Corona, COVID-19. There is a series of research notes we published about the influence of COVID-19 to the cultural sector. We have there historical approaches, because it's not the first time that we see these kind of influences. We have statistical approaches and we have forward-looking approaches. Maybe this could be interesting for politicians or decision makers if you go to our website. Okay, this is what I can say about Zurich Center for Creative Economies. And now the 2 preliminary remarks, because I think it's very important. The first remark I have to make is, why is everybody talking now about creative economies? I'm not surprised that I'm invited to this event, because we have a general shift in these times from, I would say, managing risk to dealing with uncertainties. This is one of the challenges we are facing now. Managing risk is something like a linear concept. We have, we know how to analyze risks, and then we predict and try to manage it. But we see more and more that the situation we are living in is blurred, unsure, uncertain, and the main question is dealing with uncertainties. And I just had yesterday, a phone call with this Basque Culinary Center. This is the hotspot in Spain where these famous cooks are formed, which are responsible for the very innovative kitchen. And even in the Basque Culinary Center, you have exactly the same discussion that now we have chaos and there is a change of shifts. And people think that these creative economies they have to do with this dealing with uncertainties in a certain way. I will try to explain later on why this could even be true. But this is one thing we have to take in consideration. And the second thing we have to take in consideration when we deal with creative economies, it's a very, very blurred concept. There are many expressions, from culture industry to cultural industries, creative industry. You might have singular and plurals and so on. And everybody might understand whatever he or she wants on the creative economy. This is complex. And I also will address this topic later on. And it goes beyond just the naming, because if you discuss later in the afternoon concept for creative industries, then you might have people saying this is for profit and others it's not for profit. I'm sure people will say it's about creative culture, so it's public. Others might say no, it's about industries, it's private. The question, has it to deal with art and culture, or is a software developer also part of the creative industries? Then it's not with art and culture. Is it formal? Is this a company, an organization, or is it informal? Is it someone working at home in the morning for his idea, and in the afternoon he's doing another job? So this is a second challenge we have when we face the topic of creative economies. What does it mean? Many possibilities. Now let me give you some thoughts, some ideas about what could we understand by creative industries when it's a blurred concept. And I think we can distinguish two concepts. One is more resilient than the other. We have, let's say, the very traditional concept coming from the 90s of the last century. The British were very famous, invented it, and this is a concept by submarkets. The concept says there are certain industries, and there you have a list defined by the Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sports in the UK, with industries which should be more creative than others. If you have discussions in Zurich with ETH, for example, and someone asks, why is a Nobel Prize winner in the field of engineering, shouldn't he be creative, and only these people are creative? So it's not a very resilient definition, because it follows a logic of either or. Either you are or a designer and then you are creative, or you are not and then you are not creative. So this is a very, let's say, widespread definition, but I think for our discussion, it is not a very helpful definition. The second approach is by occupations. This is more a logic of as well as you can be two things at the same time. We have here in the small circle again the definition of the creative industries, people working in the design industry, in the architecture, in the arts market, and so on. But there is another look. This is the creative occupations approach, which is more resilient for our discussion, because what does it do? It starts distinguishing. It says, in this field, we have people called non-specialists. This might be, I put an example, a facility manager in a dance company. Very important function in the dance company, but perhaps it's not that creative. Then we have specialists. This is the dancer in the dance company. And now it gets resilient. There is a huge category called embedded. This might be a stage director working in a management consulting company, because dance companies are very international companies. You have to deal with sometimes 30 different nationalities, and managing a dance company, that when organizing rehearsals with a dance company, a way that when the opening should take place, everything is ready. This is a huge management task. And we see that more than 50% of the so-called creative people do not work in the creative industries. So when we discuss concepts of resilience, let's use the creative occupation approach and not the approach by submarkets. This is quite an interesting and very important outcome of our research. So this was point one, definition, resilient. How can we discuss the topic? The second is, how can we analyze creative economies? And there I think that we also, to be resilient, we need two different approaches. We have on the left-hand side, you see a zooming out approach. On the right-hand side, a zooming in approach. It's about macro and micro. It's about looking from far away and going very close to the actors in the creative economies. Zooming out means we have to deal with a global phenomenon. We have to deal with a phenomenon where we have to compare. I just switch my screen. This is our data analyst. I told him to make a short creative economies report for Ticino. And when we look at the data, then we see, for example, that Ticino is quite strong when we look at architecture and design. This is maybe if you later on want to develop a creative industry strategy, have a close look at architecture and design. This is also if we compare to Italy. If we take a location quotient, then it's even stronger than Zurich, which means a lot. So we need this kind of analysis to go far away, have an overall look, be able to compare. And you would see then that the Ticino region is even in a European analysis for certain, you see it here again, for certain aspects quite strong. So this is just to give you an idea why it's important to go to zoom out. And then what we also need, by the way, if you want to, all the politicians in the room, if you need such a report, it's not that expensive. We can do it in a short time. But what we see when we work together with our students or with actors in the creative economies to really make this industry resilient, to understand it, then it's not only about where are the creative industries, but also who are the creative industries, what do they do? And we see that these people in the creative industries, they are very strong in something we call the what-if mode. What-if mode means that these people, designers, artists, architects, ask very often the question, what could be possible? Not what is the case? What could be possible? This is the link with the uncertainty, which makes them so interesting. These people have some very interesting tools to materialize and made tangible what could be possible. They work with models, with sketches, and so on. Very interesting how they do it. When we observe how artists, designers work in their studios, we see even that they have very interesting methods to test and reflect on what could be possible. This is someone, an ordinary man and woman, they despair, they don't know how to deal with the situation when you never know what is possible. An artist, a designer might like it. We also observe that they have very interesting ways of making possible, of realizing, enabling what could be possible by iterative ways, by experimenting, by trying out. We see then that at a certain moment, they have a very good feeling to say, now I have to stop, now experimenting is over. No, I have to do the first prototype. I have to go into a first beta series. Very often it's hard to find out how do they know, but they know. And this is an interesting aspect. And finally, what we always observe, it's never finished. When you think now they got it, now they have the solution, it's just the foundation for the next step, and it's always going on and on and on. This is what we call in our research the what-if mode, and you only understand this concept if you go close, you make case studies, you follow them for several years. It's kind of the opposite of the zooming out approach, but you need both if you want to be resilient. The third and last aspect I would like to focus on is if there was a discussion on creative economies in Switzerland. There is not that much discussion. How could we make or define a resilient role for the ecosystem of Switzerland? There is one graph I often use. It's by WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization. They published it around 2018 in a report. And I don't have to explain it. I would say it compares the 1970s year with the 2017 years. And you see that for value creation, aspects like R&D, design become more important, and that branding, after sales, community building, and so on become more and more important for value creation. And this is about creative economies, these aspects. So we could say, even to a federal council, creative economies is important for value creation in Switzerland. Let's have a closer look, because manufacturing is becoming a bit less important. Maybe we should discuss this with COVID-19, that once we had no face masks in Switzerland anymore, and people was talking about manufacturing things in Switzerland again. But this growing smile is uncontested, would be a good reason for a discussion of the creative economies in Switzerland, which does not exist, I would say. And then this is a spillover, Luciano, a classical spillover, what we see here. And what we would need to make the discussion resilient, discussion of the creative industries, and to make the creative industries resilient for a Swiss economic system, is we would need a broader understanding, or to be understood by innovation. In Switzerland, we have a very technology-based definition of innovation. In other countries, we have concepts of soft innovation, hidden innovation, and so on. If you look close at the creative industries, then you see concepts of risky projects. How do we support creative industries? Can we support it in a way like we support research? That for the Swiss National Science Foundation, we always have to fill in before the beginning of the project already what will be the results of the project. Is there a new way of funding these kind of risky projects? How can we discuss innovation if we want to allow this kind of spillovers? Exactly. Okay, so that's the end. To sum up, if we want to really use a resilient concept of the creative economy in Switzerland and make Switzerland resilient through the creative economies, then we have to start discussing why and first of all, what do we understand? Is it this either or is it more an as well as approach? I would say let's go for the occupation approach, which is more interesting. Then we need a new way of analyzing these fields by zooming in, zooming out, which also means maybe a collaboration between an institute like yours, Rico, and an arts university like ours. It's in between that we can handle and tackle this phenomenon. Then it's key to rediscuss for Switzerland what we understand by innovation. They're really important. There is a gap between Switzerland and other countries. And a very interesting question is also what does it mean, research on the creative economies? It's about doing things. It's practical, practice-based research, theoretical research, and maybe to end, Jacques Attali, he was working with Mitterrand in France. He said that we have to learn to judge a society on the noise, art, and entertainment it makes rather than its statistics. So this is somehow the research approach we would need to make Switzerland resilient. So that's all I can tell you in 20 minutes about creative industries. Thank you.